God.
It's like, what the fuck is going on? This guy's like, everybody's getting drunk.
Yeah.
They're all hiding.
I mean, I think that, yeah, I would have one drink or say I was going to. I mean, here's a perfect example. One time I went out to my local, this was when I was living in LA, and I was like, I'm just going to have one margarita. And we went to this local place, my friends and I, and the next thing I remember, I woke up and had like permanent marker written on my face, and there was some dude sleeping in my place, and I mean, it was, and like my friend was there, passed out too, but I was like, what happened?
What was the marker on your face? What did it say?
I don't even remember what it said. It said something. I can't remember even what it said. It wasn't like slut or anything. That happened when I was much younger. That happened to me when I was in high school, and my mom had to pick me up, and it was Mother's Day, and someone had written slut on my forehead in permanent marker. Yeah. I mean, that should have been a sign to my mom, and maybe things were going off the rails.
Hey, Mom, maybe you don't deserve an award. Maybe you don't get a card this year.
Do better, Mom.
You fucked up, Mom. Yeah, should have been there.
Yeah. No, I think that there's so much to all of it. My story is not original. There's a lot. I think there's a piece that I've been wanting to write for like years about how I regret being a slut. And I don't want to slut shame myself or anyone, but I really was like hypersexual for many of my years, and I thought that I could kind of sleep my way to empowerment, and it was such a lie that I told myself. And I see young women struggling with a lot of this stuff now.
But what do you mean by sleeping your way to empowerment? What do you mean by
there's
that?
this whole message of like, you can kind of fuck whoever you want, and like it's having sex, like men get to do it and women can do it too. And I think that the shame that I came into sobriety with, so much of it was around my sexual history and sexual life. And I think about how little self-esteem and self-worth. I mean, that was really what it got down to when I really started drilling down. And what I still wrestle with to a certain extent is just a feeling of it's way better, but at the core of it is worthlessness. And
but that has to come from childhood, right? I shouldn't say has to.
I mean, I think it's maybe starts there, but I don't know. A lot of it became choices that I was making that reinforced that idea. So maybe there's some stuff from childhood that you feel worthless for whatever reason. And I think being raised Catholic doesn't help always.
No, but I mean, if you're being ignored to the extent that you're drinking at 12 and you're becoming a full-blown alcoholic at 15, clearly you're not getting the attention you need.
Yeah.
Kids need a certain amount of mentorship. They need a certain amount of independence and freedom, but they need a certain amount of love and attention. They just need it.
I think my dad traveled a lot. They got divorced. So there wasn't a real strong male figure in my life. And I think women do get a lot of that kind of self-esteem and from their father or a good male figure in their life, kind of telling them that they're and women and from their mothers too. But really, I don't know. It seems like it does come from the male role model in their life. And then my mom married my stepdad, and that was a shit show. It was just like he was mentally ill, and oh God, I never talk about any of this. It was it was a lot. It was like in and out of mental institutions, and we never knew what we were coming home to, and a lot of craziness. And she was caught up with him, trying to deal with him and his. He took on a lot. He took on 5 kids. I'm the oldest of 5. He was young when they got married. Which should have been the first sign that he was crazy. Truly. But yeah, that was, and I think that everyone in the family suffered, no one really came out of that environment unscathed. But my siblings and I are all super close, and we have supported one another, and I'm like amazed at the lives they've built. We always joke, we're like, we did a horrible job raising our parents. We did a really bad job raising them. But we did. I mean, I think, probably raising yourself isn't a great thing for a teenage girl. And then I was such a good kid. I was like straight A student. I was like a child. I was
While you were an alcoholic?
No, I mean, up to a certain point, it started falling apart. But we moved every year and a half. I managed to keep straight A's, and I was like on that fast track to Harvard. I wanted to go to an Ivy League school, and shit gets hard when that's what I feel like people sometimes don't understand, and a lot of people kind of in the like elite media don't seem to understand this. If you're worried about your food or your parents or some shit going on at home, it gets hard to like pay attention to your homework and care about these things. Yeah. If your family system is out of control and you're not, and there's a lot of children in these kinds of environments. And
well, I'm concerned about the state of these institutions across the board anyway. But for sure, it's really hard for people to sustain that sort of any kind of an education schedule.
Yeah, and it starts to seem petty.
Yeah,
like you're like, oh, my stepdad threatened to like kill himself and is in a mental ward, and like I'm supposed to give a shit about my math homework. It just seems stupid, and my mom is like falling apart. So
yeah.
It just wasn't, it became less of a priority, and then I didn't have anybody on me. But then because of that, I felt like it was my fault, and in some ways it was. And I started using drugs and alcohol to cope with just that environment. And I gave up on myself at like a very young age. And this is one of the things that I talk to a lot of teenagers and young 20-year-olds, and they have had challenges or been derailed from what they thought they were going to do, and they're like, well, I'm 23, so I guess my life is over. I'm like, you're so young. I want to shake you and tell you all, if you are in your 20s, but I know that feeling. I felt that way when I was 19 and in rehab. Like I had just fucked up my whole life. And even though I was 19 and could have easily gone back to college and got a degree and had plenty of time, I was so disappointed in myself, and I could not forgive myself for that or get over that disappointment. And then you just start burying yourself in more shame. Shame is strong, man. Shame will keep you in a cycle forever.
Yeah. Yeah, and not having anything to boost your self-esteem, right? You didn't have anything that you were really particularly good at that you could go to and invest all your time and energy into that.
I might have, but it was, and that's like a kind of.
When you say you might have,
I think that I was really into the arts, and yeah, it's a
right. But you weren't getting feedback, right? You weren't doing something where you're being successful at it on a regular basis.
The one person who was supportive was my stepdad, and it was like it was not good.
Right. You always say
shit got weird.
Yeah, the arts. Like, what do you mean by the arts?
I mean, I was acting, and I was like, wanted to be a writer, and was very into all that stuff. And I was going to film school for a minute after I got out of rehab, and I really loved all of that. And I think had I had some support, even when I got out of rehab, that I could have continued that. But I think if you don't have you need support from people, and you need encouragement, like you said, and then. That's one of the reasons, though, that I do value my self-esteem so much, because it's been built like brick by brick from scratch on my own. And you're such a good friend. I mean, you do notice when I'm like not in a good place, and you'll reach out and be like, "Are you okay?"
Well,
like, I saw you tweeting some weird things.
I know your waves,